Good morning, readers. It's 10:15, hopefully, and you are getting ready to read on your own on Epic for 45 minutes. Today, we're going to continue our thinking work about our characters, and we're going to move our thinking towards what lessons we think our characters are learning. A lot of times we do this type of thinking at the end of a book, but what I want to teach you today is that you can also do this thinking in the beginning and the middle of your books if you think your characters are learning sort of little lessons along the way. And I think that in our book, because of Winn-Dixie, right, especially in chapter books, our characters do learn more than one lesson along the way. And so we're going to think through what are some of the lessons they're learning along the way, and what is the evidence from the text. So what's making us think that they're learning that lesson. So I'm going to show you how I think through this with the preacher. I'm going to read a section of the text. This is part where Opal's asking her dad to tell her about her mom, and I'm going to read this section, and I'm wondering, what lessons do I think the preacher is learning, and what in the text makes me think that? So, Daddy, I said real quick before I lost all my nerve, I've been talking to Winn-Dixie. Is that right? The preacher said, and he scratched Winn-Dixie's head. I've been talking to him, and he agreed with me that since I'm 10 years old, you should tell me 10 things about my mama. Just 10 things, that's all. The preacher stopped rubbing Winn-Dixie's head and held real still. I could see him thinking about pulling his head back into his shell. One thing for each year I've been alive, I told him. Please? Winn-Dixie looked up at the preacher and kind of gave him a nudge with his nose. The preacher sighed. He said to Winn-Dixie, I should have guessed you were going to be trouble. And then he looked at me. Come on, Opal, he said. Sit down, and I will tell you 10 things about your mama. So I'm going to use another T-chart to record my thinking work here. First thing I'm going to think about is, what lesson do I think the preacher is learning? And I think he's learning that he needs to share more with Opal. That he needs to talk with his daughter more. And the things in the text that are making me think that are like those little places where he sighed, which makes me think he's thinking. When Winn-Dixie nudged him, like kind of told him to get going. And then of course, when he told Opal to sit down, and he said he'd tell her about his mom. So my lesson is that I think he knows he needs to share more with his daughter. And I think the evidence from the text are all these little things that happened to show that he was sort of changing his mind about that. Okay, so readers, you are going to have a chance to try this out with Opal. So again, if you want to grab a piece of paper, you can make your little T-chart and, do this along with me. That would be great. We'll ramp up how we share your thinking work with one another, but for right now, you can just be doing this on paper or talking it through with your parent or someone next to you as we keep trying this out this week. All right, so we're thinking about Opal. What little lessons is she learning along the way? Daddy, I said real quick, and we're using the same text. So we're going to now switch our thinking work to Opal using that same text, which is pretty cool, right? Because you can think about different characters and their perspectives. Daddy, I said real quick, before I lost all my nerve, I've been talking to Winn-Dixie. Is that right? The preacher said, and he scratched Winn-Dixie's head. I've been talking to him, and he agreed with me that since I'm 10 years old, you should tell me 10 things about my mama. Just 10 things. That's all. So I'm already starting to think about what lesson Opal might be learning right now. The preacher stopped rubbing Winn-Dixie's head and he held real still. I could see him thinking about pulling his head back into his shell. One thing for every year I've been alive, I told him. Please? Winn-Dixie looked up at the preacher and kind of gave a nudge with his nose. The preacher sighed. He said to Winn-Dixie, I should have guessed you were going to be trouble. And then he looked at me. Come on, Opal, he said. Sit down and I will tell you 10 things about your mama. And so right now we're going to think about what lessons is Opal learning through this experience and like in this text right now. And sorry, I don't know why that's doing that right now, but hopefully we're still recording and it'll come right back. There we go. Okay. So we're going to be thinking about what lessons Opal learned in this section. And I want you to go ahead and I'm going to pause and let you do some thinking work. I've put the text back up if you'd like. And I'm thinking too. Okay, readers, hopefully you've had a chance to think about what lessons you think she's learned. I'll share what I'm thinking. I think Opal is learning to be brave when it comes to talking to her dad. I also think she's realizing that it might make her feel better to know about her mom. And some evidence from the text, I'm just going to go back to this page and sort of point it out, is like real quick here before I lost all of my nerves shows that she's nervous, but that she did it anyway. Again, she asks the preacher, she sort of pushes the preacher here. She says it again, one thing for each year I've been alive. And she says, please, right? Like kind of pushing him a little bit more. So I think she's realizing she needs to be brave talking to the preacher and asking for what she wants to know about her mom. And maybe that will make her feel better and less lonely. Okay, readers, so as you go off today, right, and I would add that to this column, but for time's sake, I'm going to keep going. So as you're reading today, I want you to be thinking about the lessons your characters are learning. Again, I would love it if you do this thinking work on paper and you want to take a picture and text it to me. You can also, like Jonathan, you did this, create a document in Google Docs and do your thinking work there and share that with me, which is great. But I hope that you are continuing to try stopping and jotting, read for 45 minutes. We're thinking about our characters again, and I will see you later. Okay, bye-bye.